So that means the YouTube side of the stream is going to start a little bit later, if it even comes up on the list. There it is. Okay, good. And then I'm basically going to be looking at the YouTube Studio dashboard to see if I get any error messages or any of the indications. Now, I'm pretty sure I cannot change the bitrate mid-stream. Oh, it actually does let me do that. Well, that should be fun. Okay, so we are going to do exactly that in a moment. So I'm going to go and put the video in maximum resolution. And I'm going to open up a free roaming map. And hey, what's up, Amber M? I know I still got to reach out to you. I had a couple ideas on that. And basically, and I appreciate... I should just send you the email so I can actually tell you what I appreciate. But no, I appreciate you gave me all of the useful information I would need. Like, I like when people actually tell me, like, the timing and the scheduling and all of that so that I can actually plan around that, Because, like, typically I'm off Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturday, So it's like I can actually work with that information when someone tells me their timing. But yeah, what I'm doing right now is I'm basically doing this before the Monday show because I was getting these error messages on the, the main screen here on the left side of my main monitor, saying like, oh, your bitrate's too high, too low, this and that, So I don't really have any issues streaming per se, but I wanted to see like in OBS if I set the bitrate to like 2500K, will it like, look different? And if I bring it up to a higher bitrate now, will it look different? In fact, we're going to do that right now. So we're going to go up to... we're going to bump that up to 7,000K in a moment, and we're going to use something graphical. I lost my chat window. There's my chat window. Good, I can see the chat. Okay. And, so, yeah, we're just going to, like, simplify, rule out particular things. And generally, you can get away with a really low bit rate for anyone, who has to stream from OBS or chooses to use Streamlabs or OBS, Streamlabs OBS or OBS. You can usually get away with a really low bit rate, but the minute things are moving around on screen, then you start to see blockiness. And so I will likely be switching between different streams, turning them on and off, just to kind of like, to see like how the different settings impact. So right here, I can already see, I have a slight delay, which is not a surprise. I didn't really even do anything. And yeah, okay, good. So I can definitely see like, and I don't want to make anyone dizzy, but yeah, this is actually showing me the blockiness that people encounter. And depending on people's upload speed, sometimes that is a necessary thing. It's just like, one of these things that people have to deal with, All right, now I just bumped up the bit rate, and I don't know how that's going to work out, but I believe on... Yep, there is. Restream is detecting the bit rate going up to 7,000. See, I think what Restream Studio is doing is it's letting me use a higher bit rate than what YouTube supports. All right. I may have crashed it. Like, my computer's fine. I think I may have crashed this stream because I don't think I'm supposed to be able to turn off. Oh, it's not playing. Oops. Okay, I gotta hit the play button. There we go. Okay, good. Now it's working again. So now we're gonna go do a quick rotation again. And now it's like a cleaner, yeah, less blocky macro blocking. So that means that worked out. So now we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna go back to here, and we're gonna bump the bitrate up again. Or we could bump it down. We could do like a obscenely low bit rate. So I'm going to do 512. Let's do a nice 0.5 megabyte. And now Restream is going to be like, whoa there, cowboy. And the bit rate's dropping and dropping. 4,000 to 1,400. And in any second, 679. And yeah, so there we go. And typically when you're doing 60 FPS, you need to like go with a high. So that's a good question. What is a bit rate? Well, basically when you're streaming, especially when you're streaming directly from OBS, and generally, like, you know, you would be streaming from StreamYard in the web browser. And so you get to avoid this particular aspect of setting it up, which is one of the advantages to streaming through StreamYard. But essentially, like when you're watching any video on YouTube, you also might see like in the bottom right corner of the video, like on a normal video. Let me see if I can open up my secondary monitor. So on my second monitor, you'll see this guy talking here about UFO stuff, and I'm watching him on my phone right now so that the sound doesn't bleed through. But a friend of mine sent me this, PJ from Orville Nation, and I'll be honest, I'm on the fence about this guy because like the first video I watched was about the moon being a machine, and as an astrophotographer, as an astronomer, when somebody tells me the moon is a machine and all this stuff about human consciousness, and it turns into like not just about the mechanical aspects, but they're saying that, you know, almost like what I would call hippy dippy stuff. My point is, you know, I want, when people make extraordinary claims, I want pics, I want something, you know, I want a little more evidence, you know. But anyway, getting back on topic. So I got sidetracked. So I'm watching this guy's video. Let's hit play. And when I'm watching the guy's video in small screen, and I can pick these, or big screen, you got the little gear icon at the bottom right corner, and you'll see it says quality. Now, this isn't a bit rate. These just tell you 1080p, 720p. These are resolutions. So the lower the number, the less detail in the image. But also behind the scenes, each of these settings has a corresponding, you know, bit rate. So basically, when you pick 1080p, the picture is going to be larger. There's going to be more detail in that picture. If it's playing at 60 frames per second like it is here, you got like twice as many frames. So bottom line is that each frame is like a picture. Like when you download a picture, let's say a picture is 1 megabyte. And they could be smaller, they could be larger. So in theory, each frame is 1 megabyte, and there's 60 frames per second. Of course, each frame is not 1 megabyte. It's much smaller than that. But let's just say each picture is 10 kilobytes. Let's just pretend for a minute each frame is 10 kilobytes. So 10 times 30 would be like 300 kilobytes. So my bit rate would be 300 kilobytes or kilobits per second. In this case, that's a different topic. But bottom line is that, I guess in I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place. So basically, if I pick a lower bitrate, the image gets more blocky because it has to compress it. It has to somehow find a way to show what, you know, show the video without using a lot of data. So if you're on a slower internet connection, you need a lower bitrate. Bottom line is, bitrate is measured in kilobits per second, and a higher bitrate equates to higher quality. And so YouTube, I think, says you can have a max bitrate of 8 megabits per second or 8,000K. So, you know, basically each kilobit or kilobyte, they're two different things. But for all intents and purposes, you know, 1,000 kilobits or 1,000 kilobytes, either one, depending on which one you're talking about, is equal to one. I'm sorry. 1,000, let's just go like 1,000, like when you download a file, 1 kilobyte might be like 1,000 bytes. It is 1,000 bytes, and each byte is basically one letter. So if you're writing a text document, each letter is 1 byte. If you have 1,000 bytes, that is 1 kilobyte. If you have 1,000 kilobytes, that's 1 megabyte. And in this case, we're using a different unit called kilobits, megabits. But bottom line is that this is supposedly the maximum setting that I can use on YouTube before something gets a little, you know, wonky on their end. So generally we can count on more or less best or optimal, reasonably optimal quality. I lost my mouse pointer. I hate when that happens. There it is. We can count on reasonable quality at 8 megabits per second. And then anything lower than that, it gets more and more blocky, because how is it going to give you the same picture that we're looking at up here? Oh, did the screen go black? Let me see, I just hit a different button. There we go. So basically, like, it'll give us the same video, it'll give you the same picture at a lower bit rate, but it has to sacrifice quality. That's basically the bottom line. I apologize for that long-winded explanation there. Let me see what the chat says here. Oh yeah, that's blocky. So that's a good example right there, yeah. So very low bit rate, this is the cool thing about video compression, is that when it stops moving, it'll start to clear up the picture, because one of the things that a video encoder will do is, if, you know, like you got a video where I'm sitting in front of a wall, the only part of that video that changes is the part where my mouth is moving and maybe where my head is moving side to side. And so they create these things called keyframes behind the scenes, and essentially all it has to do is update my face. It doesn't have to update, so that reduces the amount of data. So this allows you to use a lower bit rate. But if you're in a video game like this where the car is constantly moving, it's not just somebody talking anymore. This thing is going to be moving, and when this thing starts moving, the keyframes that it, you know, generated are no longer relevant, and so it ends up just with this blurry, blocky mess. So now we're going to crank the bitrate back up. I'm really glad I can do the bitrate in situ. I did not think that was going to let me do that. So a lot of people will do 2500K per second because that's the default setting, and possibly that's what their internet service can bear. That's what their, you know, cable, DSL, Starlink can sustain. And if your name is Salty Traveling C, it's good to see you. Now, how are you doing, Salty? Dude, you're not on screen. What? Oh, yeah, there we go. I'm back, right? Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's alternating. I'm surprised that the screen is black on that particular angle. Although my Stream Deck is working surprisingly well right now. I don't know why it's working now. This stupid. Oh, that's. Oh, yeah, I know what happened here. Yeah, so I have this really cool OBS setup where, like, I can show my widescreen monitor in the 3 segments like this, but sometimes it gets a mind of its own. Oh, not really. It loses its mind, I guess would be the correct term. But now we're going to go back to 8000K per second, because this is why I'm doing this test. So typically when I'm streaming on a Monday, for example, I have this up on one of my screens. This is the YouTube studio. This is normally where the chat would be. And, you know, oftentimes I'll break out the chat and put it on a different, you know, somewhere where it's more convenient. Or I'll keep the chat opened over here and on another monitor, because as you can see, YouTube doesn't let me reclaim that margin anyway, so I might as well have the chat open twice. Or when I'm streaming through Restream Studio, I just use the built-in chat feature because that works so well. But reason I stream from OBS when I'm playing games is if I'm not having a guest on, I can get 1080p at 60 frames per second through OBS. But if I'm doing it through the browser, I can only get 720p at 60 frames per second. And there are ways to have guests on. I'm sure you know, Salty. There are ways to have guests on while streaming directly through OBS. I just haven't been willing to test that or set that up. But I believe it'd be a matter of just, you know, spawning a Discord voice channel, or maybe even just sharing my browser, you know, screen and jumping into, you know, the browser, joining Restream, or opening up a Restream stream through the browser, and then keep that separate from the actual OBS stream, but share my, you know, browser window so people can see who I'm talking to. And I can see why people use Discord when they want to have a group of people on, right? You know, because it lets you, you know, get the best quality while doing that. Okay, so now I got to do another spin test. So I'm going to go to my top monitor. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and there we go. Now we're going to do another dizzying test. You know what? We're going to do a little AI driving, guys. Let's do a little AI driving. I got you. I know that's what you want. That's what we all want. Now, does it matter what car we use? Probably not. Or does it matter? It might matter. But we're going to just pick this one because it looks really cool, and it has the word AI in the name of the car, and we're going to clone it like Star Wars. Attack of the Clones. Gotta stop them clones. Taking out jobs. A clone job well done. Right? And we'll only clone one more car, and then I'm gonna, the orange one. Alright, I'll find us an orange car. Oh wait, let's respawn this guy. I'm gonna get one more car, and he's gonna be orange. The orange car is a bad car. Orange car bad. Do we have an orange one of these? Oh, we do. Okay, I gotta be careful. So many times I accidentally picked the manual transmission. Ah, crud. I didn't mean to hit replace. Oh, well, we replaced it. You know what? We're going to have 2 oranges and 2 non-oranges. I honestly don't do OBS. Straight through Restream Live. They keep it stupid, simple, stupid principle. But this back-end OBS stuff is interesting. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just a matter of, like, you know, what I'm doing. I agree. Keep it simple, stupid. So, like, that's why I don't do the whole let's talk to each other on Discord while I run this stream through OBS. Plus, it's a bit more resilient this way because you know how things go when people, when there's too many people. I mean, if my computer is to crash in that situation, which I mean it shouldn't, but if it did, you know how that would go. All right, so we're gonna just have all of the cars flee. This might actually not work out the way I expect it to work out, but let's find out. All right, ready, set, on your mark, get set, go. And I don't remember what bitrate we're on, but we're gonna check in a minute. Well, orange is your favorite color, then the bad guy's face color is your favorite color. No, okay. Joke aside, orange is a cool color. It also reminds me of oranges, which are delicious. I like red, but sometimes red can be a bit too red, you know? Like, I believe red is one of those colors that might even make people angry, like, on a visceral level. I don't know how true that is, but I could see, I had a friend, he painted his apartment red and black, and, you know, I mean, like, it's a mixed bag. Now, Salty may not stream through OBS, but one time when Rings of Power came out, and I do want to say, I liked your performance when Rings of Power came out and you wore the turban on your head. It wasn't really a turban, it was more like a towel. You looked like Dengar. It was like Dengar, yeah. Like, I think, you know, for you, Amber, in case you never saw it, way back when Rings of Power came out, I think it was even a stream where Floral was on with Snowdub, or was it another channel? But Salty's sitting there with like a towel on his head, and he's pretending to be like a fan of the show, I think. I forget, playing Brain Dead, so I'm guessing he was pretending to be a fan of the show. And it was just a funny performance, and the costume work was cool. And I gotta move my wireless mouse dongle, because it likes to go... Oh, there it is. Okay. It was Snowdubs, right? Yeah. So yeah, there's the blurry image. So now we're going to crank up the bitrate while this continues to run automatically. So right now we are at 2500K per second. And we're going to go straight to 8000 because this is actually the number I want to test. And I arrived at this number, you know, not by accident. Like, I'll even show you guys the Google documentation that tells me, like, why I should use this setting. So let's Google what bitrate OBS YouTube. I feel like that should be like the simplest search query, right? And you'll get like different answers. You'll have people being like, oh, you should do this. And like, just give you like a generic Google search here. On my Dell monitor. Oh, look, see, now the Stream Deck doesn't work. Yeah, so I think I need to plug my Stream Deck into a different USB port or get a new powered USB hub. I don't know. I got to figure something out. Okay. So right over here it tells you bitrate recording and streaming should be set from 4000 to 6000K depending on your bandwidth, frame rate, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, give me a real answer. No, I'm going to go to the official YouTube guidance in a second, but I just wanted to, in fact, where is the official YouTube? Ah, here it is. So this is like basically as, oh yeah, so this is a diagram from a cool sci-fi book I learned about. I didn't read it yet. I think it's called Dragon's Breath, Dragon's Tooth, Dragon. I don't remember the name of it, but apparently an alien that lives on the surface of a neutron star that is only 1 millimeter tall and 5 millimeters wide, something like that. Okay, so fictional, of course. Okay, so right here, I mean, this is like clearly official YouTube guidance, right? Like, it's like, read the chart. I want to do 1080p 60, so there it is. 1080p 60, minimum bandwidth setting 4 megs, maximum bandwidth setting 10 megs, and that's with AV1 or H.265. Wait, no, we want H.264, okay. So that's a different video codec, and one of these days maybe we should do it. Okay, now it's telling me to do 12. Okay, this drives me insane, and I'll tell you why it drives me insane. Because I'm going to pick the higher than 8 megabits per second bitrate, and YouTube is going to yell at me. Like it's doing right now. Oh, wait, maybe they updated stuff. You know what? Okay, I know I'm going to sound like I'm uninformed when I say what I'm about to say, but for the longest time, like, 8K worked perfectly because YouTube would tell you, I think it was like the original guidance at the time was 9 megs per second. Maybe that was on my previous camera. Like 1080p at 30 frames per second. The chart says 10 megabits per second. Let's just say that's the number. A while back, I would pick that number. And then it would tell me the bitrate was too high. Then I found out that you had to account for the audio. 160k per second. So, okay, 10 megs minus 160. Let's minus 1 whole megabyte for good measure, 1 megabit for good measure. And I just set it to 9,000. And it would work great. Now it's telling me, and at other times it would give me, I don't know, it's been a while to be honest. But that's why we're doing this test. So just now it was running at 8,000 megs per second. And it was saying your bitrate is lower than it should be. Now it says excellent connection right over here. Maybe let's see, let's keep the stream health tab opened and we're going to go back to the game. And we're going to play around with the bitrate. But before we do that, all I'm saying is I know I don't have any evidence of it right now, but there were times where I was getting contradictory info. I was following what I believed to be the correct instructions, and it would still like not, give me the result that I was actually expecting. But I gotta clean this mouse pointer here. So we expect the background to get a little blurry. That's the compromise of video and compression and video, encodings and all of that stuff. Oh, that's cool. The car is kind of smart enough to go around the wreckage. And, realistically, like, it is, like, not, like, even if I try my best, I have to expect some of the, compression to show up. I can't, count on it to be, like, magically perfect. But that said, we have our bitrate here. So, apparently, I can do 12 megs per second. So, we're going to do 12 megabits per second, starting now. Whoops, I should have kept that open. I'm going to reopen that window. Oh, there's no sound coming out of the game. I'm sorry, guys. Do you guys want sound? I mean... Like, I'm going to put the sound on low for you all, right? I wasn't even expecting anyone to tune in, to be honest. This is oh yeah, that's why I got to click on the app window for the sound to come up. It's just more a test. I was almost going to do it as a private stream. But I do appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will keep the stream up, because at this point it's educational and, it'll be practical for, diagnostic purposes. For both myself and people who may decide to watch the replay. Another thing I got to troubleshoot is my audio levels. I feel like I should make them louder, but if I make them too loud... Testing 1, 2... Oh yeah, that's too loud. Alright, let's lower it again. Testing 1, 2... Testing 1... Ooh, testing... Testing... Sorry, testing... Testing. Oh goodness. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Yeah. So I gotta turn on. I'll do that on my own time. There's a feature that lets me monitor the audio on my headphones. I need to do that because this volume knob is on a razor edge. Like if you put it one hair above like the thickness of a human hair, the knob is too loud, or too low if you put it slightly under that. Hey, what's up there, California Ford and Lady Mist? Good to see you. Blue is your favorite color. Well, we have a gray and red car. And, in a way, if you combine gray and red, you get a little bit of blue on the floor. Oh, no, it's got blue right there. We got a blue accent on the license plate for you. On a European license plate. I'm headed to testing my video compression settings. Not even kidding, yeah. That's what this is all about. So, what I've been doing is, since the start of this stream, I've been playing with this setting here in OBS. The higher this setting is, the better the quality. And some people's internet connections can't handle this upstream. Mine can. But, of course, that's why sometimes when you have a friend streaming and they're getting a lot of buffering, sometimes, not always, but sometimes one of the solutions to that is picking a bitrate that their internet connection can handle. And so I set it to 2500K per second a moment ago, and it looked pretty bad, but, tolerable. Now, in fairness, though, I should be clear about something here. I'm going to hit the record button so I can share this. Oh, that's good. I'm so glad my Stream Deck is lagging again. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm talking sarcastically to my Stream Deck. Orange shoes. Yeah, definitely gonna get that. Oh, yeah. I just remember the Stream Deck sometimes doesn't let you do that when you're opening up the settings window. Not just being intermittently useful. All right, so now I'm recording. So yeah, anyway, bottom line is that when you're in the OBS settings here, and if you're streaming directly from OBS, then you know the settings that affect quality are going to be under the streaming tab. Unless you are in simplified mode, it'll be in the streaming box. But in either case, picking the bit rate, you know, so we got different options here. We got bit rate, constant bit rate, CQP, which is basically like sort of like a number that allows it to, you know, match. Like basically, it's a number that when you do CQP, you type in a number like 20, and the lower the number, the higher the quality. But obviously, the quality could get really out of control. The higher the number, the lower the quality. So a higher number sort of represents more compression. Those little blocky things that we saw earlier that made the video blurry. So this is actually not a bad option. I just have to use a finite bit rate, and variable bit rate, it, you know, speaks for itself. And lossless would be something that you might do if you're recording a video. You wouldn't do it for streaming. You would not use lossless for streaming. Now, in my case, I'm able to pick the slow preset because I'm using the NVIDIA encoder, which I can't change right now. So some of these settings you could change. So as you can see, I can change the bit rate in the middle of a stream. In fact, we're going to do it right now. We're going to pick, once again, I'm going to put my YouTube on the full screen on my main monitor. And I'm going to goose it up to 2500K. I'm going to goose it down to a lower bit rate in a second. So let's see what happens here. Hey, what up, David Glenn? We're doing a little test stream here. Just kind of wanted to see, like, because I kept getting this error message on Monday that my bit rate was too low. So I want to see if, you know, see what settings I can actually use and what settings actually work. You know, just testing it, basically, bit rates. And so it does look better. I gotta say, I do like the 12 megs per second. If it's not gonna give me an error message, it lets me do 12 megabits per second. Yeah, I'll totally use that setting. And, you know, looks good. Now let's just say I had no choice. Had no choice but to use 2500K per second, which we're gonna hit right here. We're gonna hit apply. So now we went from 12 megs per second. Oh God, no. We gotta lower that. I hit 25,000 by accident. 2500K per second. So now the quality is gonna tank a lot, and that's okay. It might even skip a little bit as it goes down. So now, while that's happening, what do I have to do here? Why does it do that? Oh, I see how this works. Okay, I see. I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. Let me just move the OBS window to another screen. I lost the window. Oh yeah, I got to turn on my drawing tablet. All right, waiting for my drawing tablet. There it is. And what's up, David Glenn? Let's see here. Where did I put this thing here? There it is. Okay. Stream output. I mean, it doesn't look terrible. I mean, it looks blocky, right? Yeah, so basically, okay, here's the question. Let's just say you have no choice. And this is the part. Okay, so once again, just for anyone who's joining us late, let me explain as soon as I get the settings window. Okay, so for anyone joining us late, I got OBS on my bottom monitor with this black box that I need to get rid of. I got the game on my upper monitor, and my monitors are laid out like this right now. Oh yeah, I gotta update the right side monitor now that it's a widescreen monitor. And so what we're gonna do is, my brain got sidetracked. So bottom line, ooh. Oh yeah, I gotta open up the settings window. Okay, so we're gonna open up the settings window in OBS. Okay, now I remember what I was gonna. I remember what I was gonna say now. All right, so from the top, if you're streaming directly from OBS, this number affects the quality. I decided to go with the low number as a demonstration to see like how bad the quality would get, and it gets pretty bad. I see a lot of blockiness and blurriness on my YouTube video screen. Now here's the interesting caveat. Most people will not be necessarily streaming at 1080p at 60 frames per second. They might do 1080p at 30 frames per second. They might do 1080p or 720p at 30 frames per second. Now, the beauty of that is, if let's say you are capable of doing, 1080p at 60 frames per second, but your internet connection is slow and you lower your bit rate, one of the ways you can further improve your quality is by lowering the resolution, lowering the quality. So if you got a low bit rate, and you do a low resolution, if you do a high resolution video, 1080p, through a very low bit rate, you're going to have low quality. If you lower the resolution, the lower bit rate will work better, because essentially there's going to be less compression. It doesn't have to find a way to make all that quality. It doesn't have to throw away detail, because that's basically video compression in a nutshell. It's trying to dispose of enough quality to make the data stream smaller, or the file smaller, and hopefully in such a way that you can barely perceive it. It tries to balance out those two things, but there comes a point where you exceed that balance. Like, for example, the blurry image I'm looking at right now probably would not look that bad on a phone screen. So that's one of the things that sometimes one might take into account, is like, who's going to be watching this on what sized screen. So can I change the resolution? Well, typically in OBS, we would go to the video tab and we would do that here. So one thing that I can do, I can keep the low bit rate, the 2500K per second. And when I lower this frame rate to 30 frames per second, that should give us a corresponding improvement in the quality. Or I could tell it to scale the resolution to 720p, or do both, and that will also allow us to get better quality using the same low bit rate. If, on the other hand, we don't want to make that compromise and we have a faster internet connection, then yeah, we can go and do the full 12,000. So we're going to do that right now, and I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to let you know when I hit apply. So we're going to reset the car. We're going to hit apply. And now the bit rate is going to gradually rise to match the bit rate that I just had selected. And already the ground is starting to get better detail. Let's see here. Okay, ground is moving. Ground is moving. Yeah, it doesn't look radically different from above. I mean, yeah, like the grass has a little more detail, but the grass is flying by so fast. Another thing I gotta remember is I have a Blurbusters approved monitor. Most people don't. So that grass flying by on a laptop screen might not have as much detail anyway. So this is an area where I can afford to make a compromise in terms of streaming quality. Whereas when I'm recording a video, I tend not to make the same amount of compromises. And so right now, what can we do differently? I'm thinking out loud here. Okay, we're gonna rotate the car. What's up, Pop Culture Mechanic? We're doing a little streaming test. I'm just trying to figure out why I was getting certain error messages during my last couple of Monday shows. That's why we're doing this. And so what I did was I used the OBS settings, which is basically the same as Streamlabs OBS. And I've been playing with this bit rate right over here. Yeah, one of the problems with the automated driving is sometimes the car will go down the pit lane and down the wrong lanes altogether, but that's alright because we're just testing it. We're not actually trying to win a race. Yeah, the pavement definitely looks more slick even under these conditions. So now let's double check something here. We're going to go to the YouTube Studio. YouTube Studio is saying stream is healthy. And if we go to my main monitor, we can actually see some of the messages. So during a live stream, typically you might have this one opened because, you know, you can see how many people are watching and make sure that, you know, a bunch of people don't stop watching, make sure there's no malfunction. This information can be useful, but I don't need this to be up all the time. So I don't keep it up all the time. But you'll see there is a setting here that prior to a stream, I can pick ultra low latency. So if I feel there's a major delay between myself and the chat, I might adjust that setting ahead of time. But the stream health tab is actually, basically, it'll always show you the stream health. So if you're looking at analytics, you'll get like a little bar right here where it says excellent connection. That will tell you when something's not right. If I go here, you'll see that it has a log. So whenever there's a warning, that green dot will be replaced by, you know, like an orange dot or an amber dot, pun intended. And it'll have some, you know, text. So in that case, it would tell you like, oh, your stream's bitrate is below blah, 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 lower than the recommended thing. And then once the situation is, you know, resolved, it'll update to a green dot again. So we're going to purposefully wreck it. We're not going to wreck it, but we're going to lower the bitrate in a second. So first I want to see what it looks like through here. I think it's getting re-encoded by both Restream and OBS. So that is a little bit of a caveat there. So I'm going to go back to my top monitor. We're going to go and set the bitrate. Do we want to make it really high or really low? We're going to do something insane. We're going to make the bitrate 20,000. I don't know if this is a good idea, but we're going to do it anyway. There we go. So Pop Culture Mechanic, thank you. So he says, Pop Culture Mechanic says, I stream at 2,500 kilobits per second. Seems to work for me unless someone tells me different. But jokes aside, I was doing a sideways head motion just for fun. But anyway, in all seriousness, that's generally a valid setting. Like, so what Pop Culture Mechanic was doing, I believe you were playing a retro game recently. I mean, you do play three-dimensional games too. But anytime you're playing a side-scroller or a Nintendo DS game, a top-down scenario like Zelda or something, that's a situation where you really don't need the high bitrate. And sometimes even when you set it up for a high bitrate, some software might even, you know, decide to use a lower bitrate or something. And that's one of the reasons why in the settings window, a CQP can be useful for some people, because this would kind of allow the thing to automatically decide like when to use a higher bitrate and when to use a lower bitrate. And so when I'm encoding video files, I'll use a CRF, a constant rate factor of 18 to 20 usually. And most people can't really perceive a loss in quality until you get to like a 23 or higher. So if I'm like taking a Blu-ray movie or something, I'm picking one of these settings here, and it automatically decides. If I was using a constant bitrate while doing a Blu-ray movie, depending on how grainy the footage is, I would have to decide whether or not to use a higher bitrate. And in fact, that tends to be what happens with a lot of Blu-ray movies. You'll find that the grainier the movie, the less episodes, the fewer episodes they can fit on a single disc. You know, so sometimes some bit rates are just right. Other times a low bit rate isn't enough for a grainy video, or other times the bit rate that is necessary for grainy video might not be necessary for, like, you know, something that isn't grainy. And the same applies to high action video games versus like a side scroller or top down platforming, whatever you call them, you know. I could tell OBS to use 60 FPS, but I don't use, I could tell OBS to use 60 FPS, but I just use 30 FPS. That's another benefit. So that's key right there. So that's another reason why you get away with using 2500K, because you're using 30 FPS. And a lot of times it's not, once again, it's a lot of times not necessary. The users aren't begging for it. You know, I like using 60 FPS, but that's just my own OCD. And there are situations where, like, I do need to make the compromise. But a lot of content, like if you're playing a clip from any anime series, almost none of it is 60. I don't know if any anime is done at 60 FPS. You know, like a lot of things are done in the 24 FPS frame rate. And a friend of mine, he had a film teacher. He'd always be like, you can't perceive more than 24 FPS. And I would beg to differ, but where the guy is kind of right, although he didn't say it the right way, the way the teacher is right is that you cannot perceive, I'm sure you cannot perceive the difference between 24 and 60 FPS. I'm sorry, I should pay attention to what I'm speaking. I'm sure you can't tell the difference between 24 and 30 FPS. I mean, how can you tell 4 extra frames per second? But people can definitely tell the difference between 24 and 60 FPS. Now, I'm not saying they're gonna like it, but people can perceive the difference, you know? And so yeah, some of these film heads, I don't get it. Now, some people that are making documentaries, fine, use 24 frames per second. But, and I understand that some directors just don't know how to direct for, you know, 60. So there was a Will Smith movie, they did it at 120 FPS and it looked kind of off. And maybe you do need a different type of director, or a director needs to learn how to make optimal use of, you know, the higher frame rate. But I mean, there's so much potential. Some people get dizzy from it, and maybe that's because the directors are just doing something wrong, or maybe because some people just don't like it. Maybe there's another factor that I'm overlooking. What was it? The Hobbit, 48 frames per second. A lot of people didn't like that. I wish I could buy it at 48 frames per second. I tried. Apparently at some point, the distributor capitulated, and you can't get the Hobbit at that freaking, you know. Oh, good news. Okay, guys. So by the way, I'll get to that in a second. Yes, I have checked what, well, not exactly for what I'm doing, but I did check YouTube's official guidance, and that's why I'm doing this test today, because in the past, their official guidance was not congruent with, like, my experience. Like, I would follow their directions, and the bitrate would be too high. And eventually I found out the solution to this was to account for the audio bitrate, and that worked for a while. Now, it looks like they revised their guidance. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to bump it back to we're going to bump it to 4000K, because I think that's going to be more in line with my current frame rate. You know, so my 4000K is equivalent to your 2500K at 30 frames per second, since I insist on 60 FPS. And I'll show you the official guidance while we let the thing. Oh yeah, so I forgot to mention. So on my left side of my main monitor, the stream's current bitrate, 22 bitrate, is higher than recommended. We recommend open widget. And so it goes to the stream health tab, and it's telling me my bitrate was too high. And then when I hit apply, I changed it to 4000. As soon as I changed the bitrate to 4000, it went down. It said healthy. Now it's telling me it's 4323 is higher than the recommended bitrate. What is that? See, this is what I'm talking about. How is that higher than the recommended bitrate? I have the official guidance right over here. What does that say? It says 1080p 60 frames per second using an H.264 encoder. We recommend 12 megs per second. So if I pick less than 12 megs per second, I'm not going above that guidance. So now I'm going to go and shuffle back. And there's like a few different pages where you get pretty good information. Like I think Restream has their own page on that. I'll show that in a moment. Restream recommended OBS YouTube bitrate. I don't know if my search query is a bit too long, but yeah, this is it right here. So it says Restream Help Center, and you got like this pre-result search, I guess you would call it. The better the quality, the more data you need to send. Yeah, so basically if you're using a higher resolution or a higher whatever. And so one of the interesting things people were doing, people who wanted to stream games at 60 FPS back, you know, when they couldn't go above 12 megs per second or above 8 megs per second, whatever it was. A trick you would do is you would play the game, you would stream at like 1440p, but your computer, your game would still be 1080p. And so that would give people this, like, it was a weird loophole where you can force it to run a lower resolution at a higher bit rate. But frankly, it seemed a little convoluted how that was getting done, so I never really married myself to that methodology. But I thought I'd share that because it is interesting. But here's the other thing I should point out. when YouTube Studio yells at you about the bitrate like it did here, oh, it just went away. So usually what happens is once everything's hunky-dory, it'll start to update. So right now it's saying this is the error message that was previously listed over here. Because the idea is that whatever the most recent message in this log is, that's always going to show up in this line so that you don't have to keep the stream health tab opened. But once the issue remedies itself, you can X out of that error message or eventually it goes away. So now, okay, we're currently at 12 megs a second, I believe. Okay, we are at 4,000 megs per second. So I'm going to double check the quality. Go to my top monitor. Yep, that's true. Twitch has a 6,000 kilobits per second minimum. I believe that's something like that. I do remember reading all of the platforms on one page, and they were recommending like Twitch, YouTube, yada yada yada, and they kind of like had a pretty good idea. My next streaming platform I'm gonna get on is Kick, because I know one or two cool people on Kick, good people on Kick, and I think it'll be a cool platform, pretty well maintained. Okay, so now, you know, if I was running at a lower frame rate or lower resolution or some combination of either or, we would actually see an improvement of quality right here. And so we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go and change my bitrate again. And if anyone wants me to try a specific bitrate, let me know. I'm going to start with 10 megs per second, because I want to see what kind of error message I get. And so if we look at my main monitor or my frontal monitor, we can see it still says excellent connection. But if we go to the Restream browser tab, you can see this bitrate is now 10 megs, and Restream is like telling me this is interesting. That's funny. So this is another contradiction. What's up, Aris? Aris218, it's good to see you, man. Good friend of many channels that I am associated with. So it is good to see Aris218 here. We got a lot of good people in the chat today. I don't know if you ever met Pop Culture Mechanic, Amber M, Lady Mist, David Glenn. Pop Culture Mechanic has a pretty good anime channel. I mean, it's not just anime, but he covers anime. Covers Tuesdays. He's got a great show called Trades Talk Tuesday. If you ever want to see big machines, yeah, that's not the only reason I watch it, but it is nice seeing big machines. So I do recommend checking that out. Aris218. Yeah, what do you call it? And for anyone who's never met Aris218, he's a real gentleman. So anyway, this is interesting now. Is my video freezing? It's like, okay, so let's see. Okay, let me just regroup mentally here. So I changed my bitrate. I'm going to refresh this page. I changed my bitrate, and it tells me your quality is fair. And it's telling me some junk. It's like, please set your bitrate value to less than 4 megs per second. So it's like YouTube is saying go use 12. Restream is telling me to use 4. Now, I get it. I'm sending the signal to Restream first, and then I'm sending it to YouTube. But I'm pretty sure that I'm not doing myself any favors by forcing my bitrate to something ridiculously low. And so, let's see here what we can do here. So, maybe that's the price of streaming to 2 platforms at once. Maybe it wants me to use a lower bitrate, but I don't see how I'm supposed to do 60 FPS 1080p at 4 megs per second. But they say that's what I'm paying for. They said like, oh yeah, you can do that. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna do it. Oh, there's an analytics page. That should be interesting. So let's go back to the top monitor where the game is happening, because that's gonna help us to see what visually this looks like. Because I don't care if I get an error message. If the quality is better, then that is the answer. And so the video preview on my left screen is a little bit like choppy, but I think that's because it's a preview. It's not supposed to be high quality. Restream is showing me some graphs. So real quick, this is the result of some of the stuff I've been doing over the past like 20 minutes. You can see how the bitrate goes down when I lowered it to 2 megs per second, when I bumped it up to 12 megs. In fact, this is when I tested it at 20 megs a second. That's what happened. And this is us at 10 megs per second right now. Now remember, YouTube said I could do 12. So I'm underneath YouTube's recommendation, which is probably why YouTube is not giving me an error message right now. But Restream is all like which I'm not too worried about if the quality looks good. So what I'm doing is I'm going to put this to live here, and I'm going to put it in full screen while my top monitor is showing. And so now I got what you can see, I'm seeing in full screen. And that's how I'm evaluating the quality. I hope that makes sense. Catch you later, Amber M. Thanks for dropping by. I hope you have a wonderful evening and a wonderful remainder of your weekend. Now, I mean, looks fine, right? I mean, it doesn't look any worse. I'm gonna rotate the car. It looks pretty darned close to what I would expect it to look like. So far, so good. And let me know if you guys have a preferred camera angle. I'll try to accommodate. But, you know, the mountains, they don't change a lot, so it's able to generate keyframes with minimal change in the background, whereas the ground is moving fast, so the keyframes have trouble keeping up, so you get a blurrier image. And the car, I mean, is mostly stationary in the middle of the frame, so there's not a lot of imagery to update. Oh, look, a car's going against traffic. That's funny. So now, if I'm still recording, I'm going to stop recording in a second because I think we covered the basics. In fact, I could probably do an upload where I just download the stream and show this. Oh, cool. Let me hit the settings button. So, let's open up settings again. That's going to cause the audio to blink out. Okay, so I'm going to play with this setting once again, right? So we're going to, we're at 10,000K per second. And as you guys already saw, Restream says I should lower it to 4 megs a second. So you know what, let's listen to Restream real quick. Let's see what happens when we make it. No, wait, I'm sorry. First, I got to do 12,000. I need to see what YouTube says on their end. So we did 12,000K, right? That's going to be 2 megs better than before. And then the analytics screen is going to indicate whether or not there's an issue. Also, Restream has its own analytics screen, right? We saw that a moment ago here on the left side here of my monitor. So now this is the new bit rate. So this is kind of nice, actually. I do like that they have this here. Now, what about this? What is this saying here? Oh, okay. So this is what I'm sending from OBS to Restream. And it's getting a consistent 60 FPS. And there's no dropped frames. So this is good. This is another thing that you'll encounter. So this is important for if you're getting a lot of dropped frames, you're getting error messages about it. You might get the error message in OBS. So typically in the bottom right corner of the OBS window, which would be, you know, on my bottom, let me see here, bottom screen. You're going to get a thing on the bottom right corner where my pilot is currently blocking it. So we're going to try to adjust the window. Oh, I can't. But right over here, it says 60 over 60 FPS. So that is good. But if there was ever an issue where the encoder on my end couldn't handle it, it would tell me right here. Also, it's telling us that we're actually outputting 12,000 and change. We're not actually doing 12,000 megs per second. We're doing a little bit more. So that might account for one of the error messages. Now, Restream is telling me that my bitrate is too high, but it looks great on here. It looks really good on here. I mean, it does. But we're going to listen to their guidance. Look, YouTube's happy. YouTube's not yelling at me right now. I'm going to put that in full screen. And I just switched to my top screen so you guys are seeing the game again. So far I learned that it looks like I can actually set it to like 12 megs a second. So this is 12 megs per second, and I think it looks better. See, I think one of the consequences of picking a too high bit rate is that something on the other end, like YouTube or Restream, is going to try to then recompress the video, and that's something you want to, I think, avoid if that's how that actually works. But let's do 4,000 megs per second now. So I'm going to hit apply in 3, 2, 1. All right. And I'm going to double check Restream is showing the bitrate dropping. Yeah, the analytics graph is dropping down to 4. No, it's not actually dropping down to 4. It's still at the same bitrate. I think I have to refresh the Restream window once in a while for it to account for changes. Yeah, it is a pretty nice car, right? The car itself is like the base model is a great car in its own right, but these are like apparently extra downloaded cars that have the AI features in it. Not real. I don't think it's real AI, but like they're like a little smarter possibly, or they're just designed for this aspect of the game. So yeah, it looks like the graph on my left monitor is starting to drop. It's oddly a little bit sticky, like it's not updating right away. Oh, there we go. Okay, I hit refresh and now I see the bar. Maybe this is a graph that doesn't update. Oh, it literally says it here. It literally tells you refresh the page to see the... Okay. So what I'm talking about is over here. I just hit refresh and now it's showing like when I change the bitrate to 4,000, you see the drop right over here. And this can be instructive. So, okay, good. This answers my question. So this is an important question. My question was, if I change the setting in OBS, does it affect the stream going to YouTube? And it looks like it does, because look, we bumped it down to even crazier. I bumped it down to 4,000K, and it looks like YouTube is still receiving 8,000K. So why is that? Maybe it didn't get the memo? Well, it says 4,000K. It's bobbing up and down between 3 and 4,000K. And Restream is still yelling at me. Restream is like, please choose a value less than 4,000K per second. So we're going to do this. We're going to actually change the number to something like 3,768 now. And this is going to update in real time, the number at the bottom. And if we go to analytics, we should see a corresponding change in the numbers here. So we're going to go to incoming data. And let's see here. Good question. I'm at 2K, 2,000, 2,000 megs per second or 2,000 K per second. 2 megs per second. Yeah, I got you. 2 kilobit, 2,000 kilobit. I'm sorry, tongue twister. 2,000 kilobits per second. And yeah, like it's a matter of like, yeah, operating at 30 frames per second. That's definitely a reasonably acceptable frame rate. If you were operating at 60 frames per second, then that bit rate might be a little on the low side. No doubt. Oh yeah, I gotta get ready for that too. Thanks for that. Oh shoot, they're starting in 5 minutes. Okay, we're gonna be ending this because I got a good friend who's gonna be doing a stream in a couple minutes. Now, it is not family. It's not that it's not family friendly. It's just that, it might not be family friendly, right? So, oh, cool. Culture Casino is going to be on too, and I think Punk Waddle, Jock McHugh, Gator, and Rudolph Dickies. Great puppets right there. Yeah, you got him right here. Look, so you got Culture Casino. He's a real gentleman, cool dude, kind fella. You got Jock McHugh. He's like a sheep herder, but he's not Disney sheep herder. I used to think that Jock McHugh was the same person as Disney sheep herder, but as I now know, I've had Disney sheep herder on my show at least twice now. And Punkwaddle, what is he doing? Oh, he's got a tobacco pipe. That's cute. Punkwaddle's like one of my favorite. He might be my favorite. I think he is my favorite puppet because it's just cool. He's shaped like a football, and also he's a real gentleman too. He's a good person. But his puppet is hilarious. I mean, I know I'm gonna sound like I'm making this up, but like a few weeks before I saw the puppet appear on stream, he used to appear on Floro Show as an avatar, just like a little picture of a cartoon penguin. And I was saying to myself, he should make a puppet. And I'm imagining what the puppet might look like. And then like a few weeks later, I tune in, there's a puppet, a penguin puppet. I'm like, oh my God, they did it. And I never ever said anything, so it's not like this is my idea. No, like they did this all on their own, like, you know, between him and Floro, they came up with the idea. I was just like blown away. I was like, wow, I never even had a chance to suggest the idea, and they're already doing it. But we're going to drop a link. Did I put the link in the chat yet? Oh, thank you, David. There we go. So there's a link to the video on my main monitor, which I will be, which is scheduled to start in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, although may start a little later. It may start a little earlier. So let's see what we can make heads or tails of before we wrap it up. Okay, so I'm looking at the analytics graph, and now we are at a proper 4K. So this time the bitrate actually did update, because before it didn't. And I lowered it to less than the 4,000. There we go. Now it's telling me everything's good. Look, see, it says excellent. It says my number's good. So when I picked 4,000, I think it was just going slightly above 4,000, so it was yelling at me. Now I set it to slightly under 4,000, and now it's not yelling at me anymore. But I don't think I'm going to stick at 4,000K. And even here, it's telling me, like, my keyframe interval could be adjusted. So maybe I should change my keyframe interval. Maybe that's a larger issue right there. But once again, like, what goes in seems to be what's coming out. So that's good. I'm absolutely confused why this number here is 8,000. Like, if I'm sending 4,000 into Restream, why is it sending 8,000 to YouTube? Is it a different codec? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Do I have to refresh the page? Maybe I got to refresh the page. And what's up, Peter Venkman fan site? Good to see you. I'm sure I see you at Jolly's in a couple of minutes. Or 1 minute, 2 minutes. I don't know, something like that. Let's see here. 5517. Buffer size. Maybe we could play with that in the future. The Twitter X bitrate is more in line with what I'm actually doing right now. I got you. Alright, so we're going to do one more change. Now we're just going to bring it back to 10,000, because I'm not going to keep it at the low bitrate, especially if YouTube is saying it likes 8,000. So, okay, this is the low bitrate. Where's my mouse pointer? I lost my mouse pointer. There it is. So now we're going to bring it back to, do we want to make it 12,000? Let's make it 11,900. 11,840. So I picked 11,840 to account for the audio bit rate. And so on my bottom monitor, I'll bring it up here. I can also play with some of these other settings, right? So I could try maybe multi-pass mode, which I feel like will slow things down a bit, but we're going to try it out anyway. We could try this setting, which I'm not going to do right now. I think, actually, we're going to do that anyway, I think. Did we hit apply yet? Yes, I did hit apply. So the quality, the corresponding change in quality should show up. And yeah, Restream is yelling at me again, which is fine. I don't care. I'm going to let Restream yell at me. How about YouTube? Is YouTube yelling at me? No, YouTube is not yelling at me. YouTube says everything's okay. So, I mean, I think I'm doing the right thing here. Now I'm going to go to real time and see if I can see the quality change. And, well, that car got messed up. Let's reset the car. Huh. Yeah, I think this looks better. This looks qualitatively better. So finally, we're going to do multi-pass mode. Okay, I just put multi-pass mode. Now, I don't know if this is actually going to have a meaningful impact on the quality. But anyway, I think this concludes this testing. So all I did was I tweaked the bitrate, and I just changed this setting. I'm probably going to lower this setting, but that's what we did. Oh, and keyframe interval. I don't think that's keyframes. Oh, that's okay. So automatic keyframe, but you know, we're going to set it to 2 frames per second because apparently that's what it wants, right? So we just told it to use the settings that they said to use. And I think the quality does suffer when you use the when you use that option. I'm gonna put it in single pass mode. Single pass mode. And there we go. The video just wait. Yeah, I suspect the automatic keyframe setting might be better. But let's see what VStream says. VStream is no longer giving me the error message about the keyframe, but it is giving me, you know, it's yelling at me about the bit rate. Ah, I see. Okay. I'm going to put it back to 0 for now because I like that setting more. We're going to leave everything else alone. And in conclusion, what did I learn? Because look, if 8,000K per second gives me the same quality, I would stick with that, you know? Like, I'm kind of like, that's where I'm at right now. It's like, I would stick with the setting that, the lowest setting that gives me the best possible quality. So for now, we're just going to keep it at the settings that we saw here. I'll do more research on the official YouTube guidance on the matter, right? We got like 2 things here. We got a tab here and here. And maybe I'll do a follow-up experiment stream during the week. But with that being said, I'm going to go tune into my friend, our friend, Jolly, and the Puppet crew. The Cotton Connection, as they are called. And that basically is that. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or ideas, feel free to leave a comment. Consider liking and subscribing. If you dislike the video, please consider leaving a comment to state why you disliked the video. Your feedback is valued. And with that being said, we shall now hereby end transmission. Thanks for tuning in, guys and ladies.